Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. We are starting our special NewsX and Business World show now on the Indian economy, decoding, of course, the current state of the Indian economy, the impact of the pandemic on various sectors, what entrepreneurs and businesses have done to stay afloat, what current stage of recovery are we at, and what more the government needs to do to aid India Inc. Joining us as always, a power-packed panel rather. Pranav Bajaj, co-founder and CEO. Medulance is joining us live. Alok Sharma, co-founder and CEO. Nebul Ark is live with us. Shivanandan Pare, CEO. Adda52Rummy is also joining us live. Sohail Narayan, founder and CEO, HUDLE, is live with us. And Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, Business World, joins the panel as well. Welcome all of you and thank you for being with us on the broadcast. Pranav Bajaj, let me begin with you first. How has the year gone by been like for your venture? And since you are in the healthcare space, did the onset of the pandemic actually help your business or make it more tougher?
Absolutely, I would say that it did help us, the onset of the pandemic. So we are providing emergency response services, right, focused around ambulatory care, medical transportation. We've been in business for the last 3 years. When the pandemic happened, right, we suddenly saw a 3x surge in the demand for ambulance services. Initially, I think a lot of ambulances were being misused when the pandemic happened, but post that we saw a direct surge in the demand for ambulance services. We also acquired about 4 lakh new subscribers, I would say, working with organizations as most of the employees were working from home. The companies were looking at catering to the healthcare needs, emergency needs of not only the employees, but also their family members, which allowed us to add about 4 lakh subscribers during this time. And the kind of network that we've been able to plug in the last 3 years, which is about 5,000 ambulances, across 22 cities, right? We could also work on a fast-track partnership with the government in Delhi, supporting them with about 100 ambulances, catering to about only COVID suspect positive patients. And till date, we've already assisted about more than 15,000 COVID suspect positive patients working with the government in Delhi.
So Pranav, kudos. You're clearly a business which has social impact, and as Uday rightly said, you got accelerated in the COVID environment and you provided a service that was needed. But tell us, as we move into 2021, what are some growth opportunities you see beyond COVID? Tell us why you're optimistic about the future in terms of your business.
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say it's not the pandemic, right, as a whole that helped us. It's also the awareness levels that went across the target market that we work with. Coming down to hospitals, citizens in general, organizations, their employees, as well as general citizens, right? I was reading a Accenture report which said that the pandemic has forever changed the life of, say, a citizen, a consumer, right? And as well as every human across the world. So, as I said, since the awareness levels go up, we naturally see that, Medulance, not only our business, but any business in the healthcare tech, even insurance companies, would benefit post the pandemic just because the awareness levels have gone up. I think the behavior and attitude of people towards preventive healthcare, personal hygiene, and overall general awareness has gone up related to healthcare services today.
Okay. Sohail, Huddle just now raised some capital. You help sports infrastructure being unlocked, and you have made sure people stay active, and the infrastructure that is kind of not utilized is put to use. Tell our viewers a bit about Huddle and tell us what have you done in the last 7-8 months and how are you preparing for 2021?
Sure. So so last 7-8 months have been interesting. I'll get to it. Essentially, what we are is we're trying to make playing sports easy for people of all ages, skill levels, all genders. We are trying to connect people to different infrastructure and sports facilities around them, connect with other players through a tech platform, and that's essentially what we are. Last 7-8 months have been interesting. Post-lockdown, the first 2-3 months were obviously quite bad for us in the sense that everything was shut and it was not a good idea to go outdoors and play. But once the lockdown started opening up and we started seeing actually a huge increase in people coming out and playing sports, because a lot of our sports are actually very safe forms of exercising, like a badminton or a tennis is a non-contact sport that you can play without touching anyone, without sharing any equipment. So a lot of people actually who couldn't go to gyms and other traditional forms of exercise because they were shut or they were actually not that safe, started adopting to sports. So while the first couple of months were really hard, once places started opening up, it actually helped our business get a boost over the last couple of months, and we've grown steadily since then. Going forward for us, it's just I think as the situation improves, sports will never go out of fashion. We believe it's the most fun and interesting way for people to get fitter, and it's the only
Shivanandan Pare would say that people would play more e-sports and then less physical sports. But my whole hypothesis is the more digital grows, the value of physical human touch and being able to go out there and do what you have to do grows. So it's not either or. India in every sector is an and market. This is also growing and this is also growing. So clearly, you're right that people want to have an active lifestyle, both from a recreation standpoint and a health standpoint. And I think 2020 is an inflection point in terms of people being active from a health standpoint. So clearly there is an opportunity for Huddle to make a contribution. Shivanandan Pare, 2020, people spent a lot of time in their homes. They possibly did all aspects of whatever they do through digital or work, or watching cinema, and
Anurag,
game domain. Give us a sense of what has happened in your domain and where do you see numbers going in 2021? Shivanandan?
yeah, so I think just like any other digital industry, digital piece of business in the vertical, April, March, mid-March to April, May was blistering growth. In fact, like any other online gaming or RMG websites or destinations, we saw triple-digit growth in the overall volume of traffic, revenues, people spending time, the matrix on which any digital business is measured upon. And now, since August, we are seeing a secular growth. So that particular blip or jump is over. Now we see secular growth. We look forward to 2021 in terms of maintaining the similar kind of growth. We do see that once people get, I think Sohail kind of guys will snatch them, and people will be spending a lot of time outdoors. But having said that, the point is very clearly that we have seen that the journey to digital has never reversed back. So people who have got onto the esports, the real money game like Adda52Rummy or Adda52 Poker, this is the space where people would continue to stick on. This is our belief that 2021 is going to be a good year, furthering from where we have grown. We have reached.
And give us a sense through numbers. When we started in, let's say, March or April, what were the numbers then, and what are the numbers in terms of adoption?
So as I mentioned, March and April and May were 100% plus kind of growth, right? Both on MAUs, monthly active users, and daily active users. From mid-May, June onwards, we started seeing that particular jump was non-sustainable. Obviously, that was the onset of pandemic. Right. Yeah.
And I want to spend, is average time spent by an average gamer gone up? And if it has gone up by how much? And again, what is your business model? Is it advertising led or is it subscription led?
Ours is purely real money gaming. Right. So ours is not ad led model. Just to give you a glimpse into our business, Adda52 is part of Delta Corp. Delta Corp is India's largest listed gaming company, running the casinos across Goa, Sikkim, and Nepal. Right? So that's the parentage. So for us, from a digital point of view, we have seen tremendous improvement in terms of time spent. Now there are three sets of consumers. One is the regular high rollers whom we see who spend a lot of time. Their average time has gone up from 5 to 6 hours to 8 to 10 hours during the pandemic period. Then there is a mid segment which is regular, but does not spend that kind of money. Then there are new guys who have come in due to the pandemic who have started getting onto the online. So these are three segments where we have seen substantial increase in time spent on our platform, and I guess that's going to hold true across other RMG players, real money games.
Okay, we'll come back to you, but at this point, let us go to Alok Sharma. Alok Sharma,
Yeah.
You heard Suhail, Pranav, and Shivanandan talking about how the last few months have been, positive for their businesses. Tell us what has happened in your business and how do you see growth?
Okay, so we cater to the supply chain managers and supply chain industry, and we work primarily for the B2B. And if you look at the beginning of the pandemic, the B2B market was really bad. The logistic for B2B was completely come to a standstill, and that is where all the brick and mortar customers or our supply chain customers who were catering to the brick and mortar industry, they have completely gone down, and that is where the big problem happened earlier. But later on, after the unlockdown happened, that's where it beginning to started in June, and then since August, it is going really great. We have now 300% growth in terms of COVID during the first quarter of COVID, and then till date, and I'm really looking at a very promising state in the coming quarters as well. We have been very, very positive about the logistics industry because we also cater to the shipping industry, which is shipping ports, container freight stations, ICDs. During the early half, all this shipping industry was really, the import was completely, export was completely off, and that is where all the cargoes, all the containers were stacked up into container yards, and a lot of spoilage happening. So industry was made huge losses during that time. But right now, I think that has been catapulted into the future. And people who were looking at the volume, which is they were expecting going to happen in 2026, they are seeing that is happening in 2023 itself. So, it's completely coming very fast.
And the e-commerce is itself creating its own traction in supply chain, it's creating in warehousing. So clearly the digital adoption has led to multiple, avenues of growth for different kind of industries. Go on, Alok.
Yeah. So the retail industry, your voice is breaking. Sorry, Anurag, I am not able to hear you.
Keep going.
Okay. So, looking at the current scenarios where we are saying that the vaccine, the supply chain, which is going to be really complementing the Pranav's business, to be precisely, their customers, where the COVID-19 is a huge scale where the transportation is going to happen. The cold chain is really getting optimized in India because they are not yet ready for that kind of volume and that kind of temperature requirements, which actually is required for the COVID for the vaccine. I believe India is really stepping up their efforts in terms of optimizing the cold chain. And that is where the business lies in terms of, one of the segment of us. So we are very much positive about how it's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Okay. Uday, you may want to ask a few questions.
Yes, absolutely. I want to quickly go back across to Shivanandan, because Shivanandan, did you feel that this was an asset, for you, this kind of free time that people had? Online gaming, did it increase, and is that a trend that still continues till date, or have you witnessed fluctuations in numbers through this year?
I mean, any other industry caught unawares, we were also caught unaware in COVID-19. Surge in demand, unlike other parts of some of the industries which didn't which saw the demand dipping to zero, right? So it did catch us quite unaware. But as it says, we did scale up during the initial stages of which I mentioned earlier, right? March, April, May. Now we are not seeing that kind of growth. In fact, now the growth rate is much better than last year, month-on-month growth rate, but it is nowhere close to what we would have wished to have, what we saw in April, May, June, right? I mean, but having said that, no complaints. That's a
But what strategy? That's an interesting point that you've raised. But obviously, you did see a peak earlier in the year. What strategies have you perhaps adopted, or are you looking at adapting to get some of those customers to repeat? Because obviously they've come on board your site, they were happy with the experience, that's why they played, and that's why they stayed on for that month, 2 months, when they were at home. But what are you going to do to try and get those customers back, get those players back, in the months and weeks ahead?
Yeah, so the idea has always been so they're not abundant. So the way we measure it's your MAUs and DAUs, right? So they may not, their frequency has reduced, but they are not abundant. That's the heartening part of the story as far as Adda52Rummy is concerned, Adda52 is concerned, right? Now going back, anyways, we take share of, wallet share, which is very, very discretionary. It's not on the priority as far as the consumers are concerned. They want to get entertained, or they want to spend their time, their leisure time, they come to our platform, right? So as the avenues open up, some of these wallet share is going to be distributed across, whether it is movie watching, which was earlier on the OTT side, that side it will go, some of their time would go. Right? So it's a very accepted scenario for us, and we stick to our basics. So for us, from a consumer centricity point of view, it's our basics which doesn't change because of any pandemic or anything. We are focused on the consumer journey. We are focused on continuously improving their experience on the platform. That fundamental thing doesn't change, right? Whether it is pandemic or non-pandemic. So that's where we are.
Okay. Suhail, taking that across to you, do you believe that, this year has made people much more conscious about their health once again? Apart from, of course, their mental and emotional health, also their physical health, which is why perhaps people want to exercise more, want to play more sports. Is that a trend that you witnessed this year as well?
I think there was already a trend in people wanting to become fitter. It's definitely been sort of fast-tracked over the last 8 months. But I think it's not a new trend. I mean, we've been seeing that for the last 4-5 years.
But has this year just increased the desire of people? You're right. People have been in the last few years because of Bollywood and sports fitness icons. The gym craze has started and people want to get fit. But this year has it led to more people concentrating on physical health?
I think so. I think that's without a doubt. I mean, it's fast-tracked the need for fitness, or the want for people to get fitter. So there's no doubt about it, I think, and we are seeing that also. With our audience that are playing sports and adopting the sports, a lot of beginners are coming out and playing. Where it's not just the sort of the regulars, expert players, as we would like to call them. So I think we are definitely seeing that trend, though that's a trend across the fitness industry. We are seeing maybe a bigger shift towards sports, just because we believe it's a little more entertaining and it's a little more sustainable than going to a gym or exercising alone, which is not very social and can get a little monotonous for a lot of people.
Yeah. Pranav, another quick question for you before I go back to Dr. Batra. We are going to, of course, look at in our next segment specific questions on what more the government can do. But just on the healthcare sector in general, do you believe the spending on this sector is adequate? And this year has also taught us that perhaps we need to fund, much more, possibly startups and also spend more on government hospitals, on private setups in the healthcare sector. Basically, we need to concentrate more and increase spending on the healthcare sector.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, it's not only in India that, the problems were highlighted. I think the problems in healthcare infrastructure were highlighted across the world. Even a service like the 911, right, came under stress. Even if you see the European countries in terms of how hospitals or their emergency response faced with the virus, I think it highlighted a lot of issues in the infrastructure across the world. Coming back to the problem in India, absolutely, yeah. I think the government is already looking at more and more public-private partnerships, right, to ensure that they can not only supplement the emergency infrastructure, but a lot of creating a lot of hospital beds, ICU beds, procuring a lot of ventilators. All of this needs to be done. Obviously, as I said, the virus already highlighted the problem in the infrastructure. And I think some of the state governments are already very quick to work on these issues by forming very quick fast-track public-private partnerships to solve these problems.
Okay, what I'm going to do at this point now is we're going to take a very short break. We've got opening comments from all of our panelists. After the break, we'll open it up to some larger questions concerning the Indian economy, and our panelists will weigh in on their advice and suggestions and what they've learnt as well in the last few months. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back from the break. You're watching our special NewsX and Business World panels on the Indian economy. Before the break, we got opening comments from all of our panelists on the impact of the pandemic and the lockdown on their business, on their sector, and how they handled it. Time now to open it up to some larger questions. For that, let's go straight across to Dr. Anurag Batra. Dr. Batra.
Thank you so much, Uday. Let me start this time with Alok. Alok, the last 8 months for us as individuals and entrepreneurs have been transformational. There is no other word I can use. Now, what are your top lockdown lessons as an entrepreneur?
So, if I tell you what exactly has happened in the last 6 months for us, we have improvised on how we tweak into the business models, and this is unprecedented actually. So we were never ready with such kind of pandemic, and this time I believe that we are tweaking in our model. We know how. So we are, being a startup company, we do research and development most of the time, and we are very fast in terms of improvising the products. And that is where we saw that, how we can improvise to cater to the pandemic situation, where we were earlier working for the supply chain industry, but later on we realized that, during the pandemic, we can help how the workforce would be managed and optimized, how the hot zones in terms of the COVID zones, whether the employees, how they are interacting with each other, whether the new norms are being followed or not. And so now we know that how fast we can improvise on, and what are the areas we can encounter in terms of temperature time like these. So that is how we were pretty much keeping our resilient during this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Alok, if I may ask, frugality and focusing on the basics has become important for all of us. Essentials have been redefined. I think this happened across sectors, across all sizes of entrepreneurs. Tell us philosophically what has changed in the way you think as an entrepreneur.
So, well, there are multiple areas where we have seen the behavior is changing. One is obviously the people have become more health conscious. How we are disposing the waste, that has become the bio waste that was actually we were granted using. Now we are more conscious about how we are using it. The behavioral changes have come really drastically in that. Similarly, we as a startup, we used to have a R&D team which is putting together, doing the workshops in a room, and then come out with the products. But right now, we are now opened up to the whole market, because now we have adapted to remote working, and that is where the whole market is open for us. We are not really looking at the local resources, but across the globe, we have the people who are contributing to the R&D efforts we are doing. So that is a big change from our perspective.
Okay. Shivanandan Pare, again, a lot of behaviors in COVID times are kind of forced on us. They're not by choice.
Yeah.
We have a compulsion. But what is your sense on what will stay and what will go away, and what are your top lockdown lessons as somebody who leads an enterprise?
Yeah, so I think what will, according to me, what will not go away is the concept of work from home. I think
Work from
that's
anywhere.
not
Work from home,
work from
yeah, work from home, work from anywhere, right?
unless
The
and
physical.
otherwise your home.
I know, right? I agree with you. So the concept of work, not necessary to come to office. I think office, that particular requirement will go away. People, leaders or team members are pretty comfortable not seeing each other and getting work done. I think that has opened up another thing for us, especially is that, our ability to work with the global ecosystem or ecosystem from anywhere has got enhanced a lot, right? So earlier, if you were to look at, so for example, if you were to look at a game designer or a design function, you would say we would like to have more face-to-face meeting. But I guess teams have got used to now working remotely. So that has percolated across how we work with our partners and ecosystem as well, right? A lot of
Scale up across geographies.
Yeah.
Both on the talent side and on the partnership, whether access to
Right.
technology, access to new ideas, access to new business models. I think it is
Absolutely.
across sectors that kind of boundaryless imagining of who we are and what we can be has happened. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
your sector is no stranger to that. But I
Right.
want to ask you, Shivanandan, as an individual, what are your beliefs that have seen a change, or what are the new beliefs that have got added to your thinking?
So, just for the audience sake, I joined them during the pandemic. I have not met anybody in the organization physically so far. So I took charge of the business during that time. So one of the things which has really shaped is, a contributor remains a contributor in the team, irrespective of crisis, irrespective of whether you're physically meeting him or not. So that particular talent becomes extremely important, and talent is, that's where I would, that belief has only strengthened in me during the pandemic, that people raise up, good talent raises up to the situation and contributes without complaining.
Okay, let me go across to Suhail. Suhail, what are your top lockdown lessons as an entrepreneur?
I think lessons are, some of the cliches sort of came to life at this time. We've always heard that you should prepare for the worst, but that never actually happened. I mean, you've never seen like what worst can be till this happened. So, sort of my lessons were that, sort of allowed us to learn how to deal with problems much better rather than just talk about it and, theorize about it. We were able to actually go through an unprecedented problem in the business for 2 months, where the entire team and the business was shut, and the entire team, we were wondering how you'll sort of, continue and how long this will run for. So that actual problem and dealing with the problem was a great learning. And one of the learnings was that actually at that time was some of our best work happened, which was a pleasant surprise. I mean, some of our best ideas, some of the most innovative things that we've done happened in those 2-3 months where actual work was not happening, right? And that was a learning. We now, learned that we need to sort of take some time aside every week and devote it to new thinking and new ideas. Whereas, because we realized that during those 2-3 months, we didn't have any daily urgent tasks to attend to, so we were actually able to think long term and sort of plan for the future and not worry about the most immediate task at hand.
Absolutely.
So that's been one of the biggest learnings, and how to sort of keep that going now that the sort of immediate urgent tasks have started again, and the daily work and the daily grind has become how to keep that going and not lose that touch with that thought process has been, I think, one of the biggest learnings.
Okay, Pranav Bajaj, clearly, being in the kind of business you are in, you dealt with people's loss of lives or dealing with a health issue which is serious, and sometimes that can change you as a person. But tell us, as an entrepreneur, what are your top lockdown lessons? What is the new ways of doing work in business?
Absolutely. I think, the lockdown was a lesson for not only every entrepreneur, but maybe every individual, right? Across, we realized that we can't take anything for granted. And also at the same time, it also helped us realize that we as a race, right, can come out of anything and adopt faster, right? I personally also got a lot of time to reflect during the lockdown. Personally, I was keeping a check on my fitness activities, staying at home, working from home as well. I was playing some tennis on my terrace as well regularly, at least 4 times a week. Apart from that, going 100% remote was never possible for us being in the emergency response space, even though we could move our sales, business development, admin functions to work from home. We had these huge team of frontline workers, right, who were always working in emergency scenarios. But what also happened was that I think the awareness levels, even for an organization like ours, went up in terms of, we were fumigating these ambulances not only once every day, but, post every patient pickup now. We were also obviously using PPE kits for all our paramedics and drivers who were catering to COVID positive suspect patients, which I feel should be a regular activity, right? Even post the pandemic goes away. So, because these infections can happen. So I think, and we also were using other protocols in the form of, say, daily temperature checks for our staff, all the protocols laid down by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, even as something as simple as having an Arogya Setu app to, ensure that our workforce is working.
But one more quick question for you, Pranav, on your sector, since you must have done, studies on the sector, etc. In the last couple of years or so, do you believe our emergency response time has gone down in particularly the cities, and what more still needs to be done in the rural areas to ensure that emergency response time goes down even further?
Firstly, I would not think that, our response time has gone down considerably. I think as more and more technology is being used in emergency response, we need to provide better tracking, better remote sharing. What I mean by this is we should have platforms or technology that are sharing patient vitals with the hospital doctors, so they are firstly more prepared about the incoming patient, and obviously can give better life-saving instructions to the paramedics inside the ambulances. Looking at some of the traffics in our metro cities, I think this is critical because traffic is a challenge, is something we've not been able to solve. But by, as I said, better tracking, better location mapping, and more data-driven approaches, we can considerably reduce the response time. Coming to the rural areas, I think, the pandemic has already taught us that teleconsultation, remote monitoring, video consultations are going to be a thing of the future. So I think it's going to be adopted everywhere across the country.
Okay. Pranav, again, the healthcare sector is dependent on the government policies, on the government, kind of frameworks. And I would like to know from you, as an entrepreneur, are you happy with the government stimulus that the government has provided, with the response that the government has done? What has the government got right, and what can the government do better?
Absolutely. So basically, working in the emergency response space, as I said, we being in business for the last 3 years, we never directly got to work with government entities before this year, right? Only that we had supplemented a network across the country. We got an opportunity to work with the government in Delhi, and we saw very quick adoption from them. They saw that the challenges were real, right? They saw that they in terms of even their thought process was to always reduce the response time, obviously ensure that they have more fleet on the ground once the problem was highlighted than the number of requests coming in. In terms of a policy framework, as I said, we always need to promote more public-private partnerships is what I feel, right? We need to work on these public-private partnerships, which should be incorporated much faster. I think the speed of incorporating such partnerships is much slower right now. I think, if we can increase the speed at which these partnerships happen across, say, healthcare, other sectors as well, I see it's going to be a game changer in our country in the future.
Okay. Alok Sharma, since you're in the logistics sector, and again, the logistics sector, as you know, the logistics costs in India are 12 to 14% of the business, whereas across the world, they're between 6 to 8% of the business. So do you see the government in a view to bring down the logistics cost, then it can increase profitability? What is it the government can do to kind of help your sector, and by that help every sector of the economy.
Right. So as you rightly said that, 14% of the GDP is actually towards the supply chain costs, and the technology adoption in India is actually at a decent stage. When you look at what kind of technology the shipping industry or the logistics industry is using, is basically a GPS location, which is the old age technology. There are a lot of new innovations which has happened in this industry. Now, from the government perspective, I think at some areas they are spot on how to resolve that in terms of defining the shipping and port logistics as separate sector altogether, separate industry altogether. That is where the more attention would go towards that. On the technology adoption side, if you look at the more and more innovations are bringing into this industry, and that is what is, and the technology is actually enabling the customers to reduce their supply chain costs. And that is how we would bring down it from 14% to at least 10%, say near future. Obviously, there is a long way to go to about 6 to 8% of the GDP, as I see. But there are necessary measures which have been taken really very closely.
What do you think, Alok, the government can do to kind of kickstart the economy beyond what it has done?
So,
and when do you see the economy coming back in full bloom? In 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months?
Okay, so we being an entrepreneur, we are super positive about things, and I am very positive about coming back. The economy would be taking another 6 to 8 months, 6 to 9 months to come back into the full bloom. From the logistics industry perspective, the 6 months which were lost since March, from March to August or September, that is where actually is putting in more pressure and more, imposing more measures to be taken in the supply chain industry, and that is which is actually going to be boosting the whole industry altogether. Once we it ripples the fact across the industry, not only in the logistics, but all the customers which the logistics industry caters to.
Okay, Shivanandan Pare, what do you think the government can do to be a bigger enabler? And when do you see the economy coming back in full bloom? 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months?
You'll have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself. While the Prime Minister is trying to unmute the economy, we'd request you to unmute yourself. You still need to unmute yourself, Shivanandan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is it fine now? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I'm not an economist in terms of, giving this answer. It's a very hard job, but I believe in human spirit. And I think mankind has shown the way it has bounced back after every calamity or anything similar. While in our memory, in our life, we have not seen something like this, but, mankind can bounce back. So if you were to ask me from a pure, the sentiments coming back and people coming back and feeling positive about their future or their present spending power, I think it's just a matter of 3 to 6 months when people will come back. That's going to be by March.
Okay.
People would, right? That's how.
And why do you feel that? I know the human resilience and Indian entrepreneurs are used to doing a lot with very few resources, with the highest cost of capital, so on. So we are resilient and we have a DNA of innovation or frugal innovation. But give us some other qualifier. Why do you think?
So let's look at, so rural more or less is unimpacted, right? The agri economy, output, farmer income is not, right? And people who are employed, I think this has been a greatest saving period. As far as their savings, their bank balances are, those who are earning have only bloated, right? There were no great avenues to spend or splurge, which is unheard of from a human behavior perspective, right? For almost 8 to 10 months, people have not spent. So when it opens up, when they come out, they're going to spend, right? I mean, this is basic human, instinct which I'm counting on. In terms of structural reforms, I think the government, whatever needs to be done or needs to be done, must be being looked at. Yeah.
Okay, Suhail, you heard Pranav, you heard Alok, you heard Shivanandan. What do you think the government can do to unlock the economy from here on? And what did the government get right in the last 8 months? And when do you see the economy coming back in full bloom?
I think so to be very honest, I'm probably one of the worst persons to answer this question. I'm very focused on our own industry, our own business, and I can use that as an example to answer the question, right? As to what they can do, I think I'll echo what Pranav said, which is that, which is true for our industry also, that public-private partnerships are a very important way to grow. Taking an example from our industry, over the last 20 years, government has invested so much in sports infrastructure, for example, due to things like Commonwealth Games and etc. And someone like us and platforms like us can really help make best use of those infrastructure and allow the government to earn extra income through that, right? Which can only happen through a public-private partnership, and that's something that that's the way to go forward. As far as looking at our data and our analysis, I think from what I see, the economy is already back. I mean, people are already spending. People are doing the things they love as much as they can, obviously. And and that's why I said on the overall metrics of the overall economy, I'm probably not the right person, but looking at our data, I don't see a problem there. I mean, I think people are spending, people are doing what they love to do, people are spending discretionary income also. So I think on that front, we have nothing to worry about in the long run.
But what can the government do, and the RBI for businesses like yourself and your sector? And also, what if they got right this year? The stimulus is announced. What were the good parts of that stimulus?
We're a very small, to be honest, a very small segment of the economy. Sports has never been at the forefront of the government's mind. I mean, so if I had to answer, maybe, again, just for my sector and my industry, I mean, maybe they can just spend some more time thinking about it. I think that's, and then the solutions will present themselves, I think. So that's, having said that, it's not the right time to focus on sports as well. I mean, it can be 6-8 months down the line. There are bigger challenges that the country or the economy is facing right now. And I'll be okay if that's not at the forefront. And because this is my sort of expertise, anything else that the government is doing, I'm really not the person to comment on. I'm.
Alok, let me move gears, and Uday, let me ask all the 4 entrepreneurs, including Pranav, Alok, Shivanandan, and Suhail, if you had to make 3 predictions about 2021, what they would be? I know none of you is an astrologer. I have clear understanding that neither your astrologers nor your futurists. But from where you stand with what you do, what can you see happening as a trend? Let's not call it predictions. Let's say, what are the top trends that you foresee in 2021? Let me start with Pranav Bajaj first and then go around the house.
So, I think that, as I said, this happened when the global recession also happened in 2008. Like, some of the best companies, I feel, were founded during that time, which is also going to happen this time around, right? The second thing is, I think that people in businesses have become more coordinated and they're working together now, right? They've understood the importance of that. Also, as I said, the government's initiative to go local is something which will help us revive the economy much faster. And I think we are looking at in 2021 and where the economy should come back to pre-COVID levels.
Okay. Suhail, your top 3 trends that you can see happening in 2021.
I think fitness and health is going to become more important, even more important in the, maybe it was in the middle class and upper middle class, it was gaining that importance, but we're going to see that across the board in all sectors, and it's going to filter down to the rural areas also. And I think that's, for me, going to be the biggest trend going forward.
You're saying that till now fitness, in rural areas, because you walk for work, you walk for your water, you walk for your school, your natural lifestyle is more active, if I may use, you're more fit, because that's how the rural lifestyle is. You don't necessarily take a car to everywhere you go. But you're saying that they being open to and conscious about fitness in the way they should be, will be kind of a new trend. Shivanandan Pare, three trends that you see becoming big and mainstream in 2021?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is closer to human beings. That which mankind will value more post 2020 pandemic. Value for its own time, value for his own dream, and value for his loved ones. I think these three things are going to become big.
Now you sound like a philosopher, Shivanandan. You don't like the CEO of a gaming company. You sound like, Shivanandan the philosopher. But you're so right. Value for time, value for oneself and his or her dreams, and value for human beings, human relationships. Alok Sharma, you have the final word. What are the trends that you see happening in 2021 that we can't yet see fully?
Yeah, so now the humankind has realized jaane to jahan hai, first of all. So the first priority goes to the health that people are now going to be changing their behavior towards. Value for the environmentally, the consciousness about the environment, which I believe people have been taking as granted. That is something going to be changing as well. From the industry perspective, I would say 21 is really going to be very promising. And we are already seeing the trends for it. In terms of, you look at the stock market, look at all the industry, they're just coming up, bouncing back. The growth is actually accelerated post-COVID, and that is what is going to be propelling the whole economy as well as our behavior towards it. And we have a specialty, especially in India, when you are pushed to the wall, you excel. And I believe this is what, this is the worst which you could see that.
Change needs to push you. Change doesn't happen in India till
exactly.
You're kind of forced to adapt or forced to adopt the new practice. Uday, let me ask you, 8 months is a lot of time to be able to add new habits. Now, you started doing your show from home a lot of times. Do you miss the studio? Do you miss the buzz in the office when you go to a broadcasting operations, the newsroom in a traditional way? Do you miss that?
Well, absolutely. No doubt you can be working from home, but I think for our business in the media, the vibrancy of the newsroom, I think the buzz there, the interactions, is something that we definitely missed, while we were working from home. Also, in terms of in the studio, you can play out so much more with graphics and with your video wall and with many other things. So, all of those are aspects that I definitely missed in this time. And also, as far as, of course, the media space is concerned as well, the travel, because remember, you have to travel around to different constituencies. So that's something that was missed, of course, in the summer months, but that I got back as soon as the Bihar elections and the Madhya Pradesh by-election started. I was back in the field, back interacting with people. And I think kudos to our reporting team who did it even, during those tumultuous times when Delhi was at its peak, when the country was at its peak. Our reporting team was on ground, interacting with migrants, of course, taking precautions, but literally being in the adversity, in the face of adversity. A few media personnel did pick up COVID as well from their visits to Hathras and other places, but I think that's the risk of the job.
Journalists, they truly became those frontline professionals.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's something, of course, which we hope will be a trend which will continue, that media will perceive and persevere for the truth and to bring the stories really home to the public at large. In the last couple of years, just before we conclude, there were people also who were pointing fingers at the media, saying that you've lost your moral compass and you've got wayward. I think this year has also been the year for the media. It's reimposed a lot of trust of people, because once again, in the face of fake news and fake forwards, it was your news channels and digital media outlets that people went to for credible and concrete information, when they were locked up at their homes. So I think this has also been a year for the media. And on that note, we are completely out of time. We have to leave it at that. My thanks to all of our panelists for joining us, for their insights. Wishing you a much better 2021. And for those of you whose 2020 was good, well, let's hope 2021 is even better. Thank you, Dr. Batra, as well, for joining us. Let's take a break, much more on the other side.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.